All right. So, hi everyone. This is Mohammad Hamid Khan, and today I am back with another exciting podcast on topical authority and semantic SEO. This time we're gonna cover some important questions and important concepts. I've been also doing semantic SEO for a long time, and I have a guy with me who's also associated with semantic SEO and who's running his digital marketing agency, mainly SEO, providing mainly SEO services. And I have Pavel with me. So thanks, Pavel, for joining today and be part of this semantic SEO podcast series. So it's going to be very interesting in the next hour. And today we're gonna uh, it's like not a very planned conversation on semantic SEO, but some very random or very important questions I'll put in front of Pavel, and also we're gonna discuss or cover those concepts from each other's experience so far. We got from Topical Authority course, reading course case studies and other semantic SEO methodologies like topical maps, briefs. We're gonna cover everything. So before diving into the practical part, I would love to uh, ask or hand over to Pavel to briefly introduce about himself. Pavel, what you do, just for the audience, if you can introduce yourself, your experience, and what you do, what stuff you enjoy to, your main expertise, and so on. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thanks so much for having me here, Mohammed. It's a pleasure to chat with you. My name is Pavel Klimakov.
Right.
I do SEO for about 7 years at this point. Around last 2 years, my main focus has been switched towards semantic SEO. And I learned it primarily from Koray, his case studies, both written and the video ones. And at the same time, he really inspired me to pay more attention to Bill Slavsky blog, his articles, and his research that he did. And this is really a short summary about me.
Nice. So you've been at SEO Vibes conference in Poland and hosted by White Press. So how was the experience and overall vibes around, and people you met, and what was the overall experience there?
Yeah, so this was actually just maybe a week ago or something like that. This conference was near Zakopane. I want to say, I think all of the SEO conferences, they kind of have the same, let's say, energy or atmosphere, because most people you meet there, they are digital marketers or SEOs, they run businesses online. So it's almost like if you walk into a room full of people and there's a bunch of small groups, any kind of group you join and you talk with them, you will always hear either interesting ideas or sort of methods that people use to promote their businesses, acquire customers. So it's really, I mean, it's common sense, but it's very niched down, very concentrated type of group. So in that way, or in that sense, it's good to be around like-minded people.
Okay, great. So I would love to discuss first about your experience with semantic SEO and overall Koray as a person. How do you overall perceive this whole mindset which Koray is bringing to the SEO community? I mean, what do you think about this, and do you think it's something practices who Koray introduced already been working in the past, or it's just a new revolution kind of that? So what do you overall think about this revolution of semantic SEO introduced by Koray's framework?
Yeah, so I can say in my perspective, I really haven't seen anyone talk about semantics in the way Koray has been talking about it. And I can say I've been researching SEO and what people are doing, how they're ranking, what they're trying to do with websites in order to acquire traffic across, let's say, different methodologies, across different languages, different continents. I even traveled through different parts of the world and met with different SEOs to just understand what they're doing and how they operate. In my perspective, most of them were sort of in the, let's say, similar bubble. Maybe some of them were on different sides of the bubble, but they're still within the same sort of category. So some of them maybe were closer to this type of semantic structure that that Koray introduced, but still there's a massive gap. In terms of, let's say, the mindset or the difference overall, I believe before Koray's introduction of this concept, at least if I judge by myself, SEO was more like a very markety type of thing, where you would just handle things with lots of creativity. You can, let's say, come up with different topics to write on. You can come up with different solutions. And then primarily, I think we all can agree that SEO was driven by building links. Whichever method we can come up with, it's just build links, create some kind of content, and proceed in this way. Koray's methodology and his mindset that he brought to life, it's really engineer focused. It's very technical system focused, which by default brings all of the SEOs that try to perform SEO in this way, it brings them way closer to the algorithm, because he's really trying to present things or teach things as is, sort of state of the art type of condition. Exactly as the search engine works is how we try to communicate with it. So this is like, let's say, the closest distance of that is possible to get to, or how as close it is possible to get to the algorithm. Yeah.
And do you believe it really works, or I mean, it's just about terminologies, concepts put together, just naming the same things with the new terminology names? Is this like that, or it's like a whole mindset? But also in terms of results, it works like you can say other methodologies. Like you can say it has like alternatives, like links, for example. If you build more links, you can maybe definitely rank, but having minimizing the need of links, you need to build topical authority, like publishing less pages but very high qualitative pages. So do you think like it really works like it is being presented to the market, or there are some gaps?
Of course it does. I don't think it's a kind of a question about belief or not, because if we, let's say, just try to get closer to the inventors of these systems, we look at research papers or patents, and we try to understand how these inventors look at the state of the internet, look at the websites, and where do they see value and where they don't see value. It becomes, let's say, very transparent in terms of what can be used by them or what can be extracted from our content by their algorithms. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, nice. And like before deep diving into specific concepts, like a couple of concepts we're gonna discuss, like topical maps and then some microsemantics things as well. I mean, they're very like interesting, and people like are really like confused. I mean, they create topical map and they know, okay, this is a very good topical map, but the really difference they're gonna create is how they put the content together. I mean, the microsemantics, like in microsemantics, you put like each word configuration, teeny level optimization. Basically, we're gonna deep dive into that and discuss where you can make the difference. So before moving forward to the things like that, I would have to ask, I mean, about topical authority. I mean, what topical authority really means, because it has like different interpretation from multiple experts, and there's not specific, you can say, consensus, or you can say agreement on a single definition. So what is topical authority, and how it works, and how to measure it?
So I would say actually topical authority has two meanings. One of them is an actual ranking state or a state of a website. which, let's say, if you go through the patterns, you can see there is something that's called a representative source of the entire cluster. In, let's say, terms that we use, once the site achieves topical authority, it becomes the representative source. And that means it's the most important site in the entire cluster, in the entire index of the search engine. Another thing is the methodology of topical authority, which leads to the state of, or let's say the ranking state of topical authority. If we're talking about methodology, it is, maybe it's a bit complex to explain, but let's say on a simpler level, it is covering all critical topics to be assigned in the correct indexes and covering them with higher precision, higher details, higher accuracy, which leads to search engine needing this website as a resource of information, because it gives things accurately. It gives information for all of the connected topics. It's updated, refreshed, it's accurate, it's detailed, and it gives new information that, let's say, did not exist before. That's, let's say, a blurry part between the methodology and the actual state. That's
Correct.
that's how I see that.
But there's one problem. Problem is, if you like starting a website in any knowledge domain, like for example, diabetes, for example, a disease, or you can say some more like protein powder, you can say the topical coverage. It's like almost all the topics are covered by the top competitors, right? Like if you write diabetes symptoms or contexts around this outcome or the noun or the entity diabetes, like symptoms, treatments, etc., etc. Sites ranking like Mayo Clinic and other sites, diabetes.org.uk, like big authority sources, which we call in semantic SEO. But how you actually make a difference in topical coverage? Like they have covered everything, you can say. Do you just like simply replicate their topical coverage, or how you can make a difference in macrosemantics level?
So most of the time, I would say it's very rare where competitors actually cover everything, unless it's really,
Almost 90%.
well,
90% coverage is done.
if you, so one thing, let's start from the beginning. Depending on your initial source context, you will actually realize what kind of clusters that you should go into. Based on this concept,
So
there's not going to be
sorry,
necessarily.
let's suppose my source context is, I'll just making it more specific. My source context is I'm providing diabetes online consultation, so I have to cover diabetes as an entity. So how I can proceed further?
Can you repeat that? Tableties for consultation? What do you mean?
Online consultation for the disease diabetes.
Oh, diabetes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
how would I proceed in terms of macrosemantics?
right. So do you want me to give you the number or the names of topics, or just the general idea?
An idea basically to smartly play in terms of macrosemantics, topical coverage, like in simple words, creating a topical map around diabetes central entity. How you
Sure.
gonna like start with that and keeping your source context in mind? And you can say there's a lot of authoritative sources who has covered major chunk of diabetes subject. How you gonna make a
Sure.
difference in terms of topical coverage or macrosemantics?
Sure. So first, let me give you a conceptual idea. Let's say we have a concept of diabetes right here. We're providing a consultation. The next part is we want to understand what's being searched in the queries around diabetes, whether there are different types, causes, treatments, maybe there are different theories, researches, the history of diabetes, things like that. Maybe diabetes are linked to some other, let's say, close disease. I'm not an expert in diabetes, but I would assume it can be imbalances between different nutritions, or let's say vitamins in the body, or kind of lifestyle, or certain type of things. Probably there are different what's it called, let's say categories, or extreme, or let's say levels of conditions, whether it's, I think, first type, second type, third type, something like that. So there
Taxonomy?
would be
Taxonomy, you're saying?
no, not necessarily taxonomy. I'm saying that we're still stuck, let's say, on the level of topics. So it's important to understand all of these important concepts that exist around diabetes and what happens in general in terms of what people are searching here. Since we're providing a consultation, again, I'm not sure if there is a competition for online consultation. Maybe to provide an actual consultation, you need to go to the actual doctor, do the physical, let's say, tests, check the blood test or something like that, then get results, and then you can actually receive a consultation. So in this case, doing an online consultation can be, let's say, tricky in case the actual process works in the physical world, because maybe in your case, your clinic can take the blood tests, analyze them, and then give online consultation after you have the actual results of the blood test. So that varies on depending on how your business operates or how your company operates. But again, let me take a step back and explain that first we care about what are the closest points around diabetes that are being searched, and the ones that we can talk about that would be related to our source context. Out of all the ones that I named, all of them would be close enough, and we can actually process them. Then, as I said, there would be cases like similarities between diabetes and other things, or maybe if you have one disease and it is connected to diabetes, or it increases chances for diabetes, or it makes it worse, then this becomes a little bit of a blurry part, because maybe if you don't work with those, this can be the tricky type of thing. Because if you're not an expert on that topic, technically, and let's say you don't provide consultations on those things, technically your source context doesn't allow you to process those things, but maybe it is very important and it is needed. And if you go and touch on the other diseases, then it forces you to enter other indexes, and you will need to compete there as well. So this is the sort of balance that is important to keep in mind. And as I said, if you have a direct competitor that does something like this, most of the time they don't really cover everything. They just cover the most, let's say, money terms, or most obvious type terms. So that's that. The next thing, we'll try to go to the outer section to see what can be connected to diabetes that we can also process. In this case, it can be things like, let's say, lifestyle, diet, or maybe sleeping patterns or things like that, that indirectly still affect your health, still affect diabetes. Since you're an expert on diabetes, there is sort of the upper part of just other more distant topics that you still need to talk about. Again, this primarily comes from the source context. And this creates a kind of different, let's say, bubble, or maybe matrix of terms or topics. And this is why it's very, very different from source context to source context. Even if there is a massive, like Mayo Clinic, or a massive site on everything related to health, their source context is different from yours. Therefore, they would be limited to certain things. I hope that helps. Feel free to ask for more clarification if needed.
Yeah, it's a good thing to start with. I mean, you give the hypothetical or theoretical analysis or conceptual picture you have painted. Like, okay, you start with your source context understanding first, then you build or connect context around a specific outcome within diabetes. And you also mentioned context coming from queries relations, query semantics. and some similarities concepts as well coming from lexicals. I mean, you said like if you're covering diabetes, you have to cover some other diseases as well, like okay, how diabetes versus you kind of you can say. So basically, this is how I mean it's a good point to start with. Definitely, I also uh, start with kind of this research.
Sure. Let me just add a few points.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
very important that we pay attention to what is being searched instead of just going into like conceptual things. Because maybe if you're an expert in diabetes and you know that, let's say, I'll give something like not related or not accurate, but let's say if you listen to music very, very loud, it actually has a chance to increase diabetes. Maybe that is very true, and you're an expert researcher and you know that, but nobody is searching for those things. So in that case, you cannot just write different things from based on what you know. It's important what people are interested in, where they need answers, and focus and prioritize those things first, and then turn them into or bring them closer to your expertise and these type of things. And just to give, I just expected that you would provide more, let's say, comments or more questions on this side. But if we're going back to diabetes, it's important to address specific, let's say, type of um, patients. Maybe it is a child or an old person. Maybe it's specific, as I said, health conditions. Maybe it depends on the gender or, let's say, existing surgeries or other type of things. Because different people will have different behaviors. For example, a parent that is searching for solution for diabetes for their child will search for specific type of things. Maybe they'll search for symptoms like my child is, let's say, sneezing, or the skin has different color or something like that. So the query would be, why is my child's skin color like this? Or why does my child has these type of sleeping problems? Whereas, let's say, a person who is, let's say, 60 or 70 years old and they have diabetes, they would ask for something like, I had this surgery, what's the best treatment for my diabetes? Or how do I know if I have diabetes? So different behaviors, different users, different clusters, they will have different requests. It's important to capture all of them and understand how it is possible to provide them all necessary answers and basically bring them closer to your source context. And just to give another small comment here, we can realize that even if, let's say, a parent is searching, why does my child has problems sleeping? And you know that that is connected to diabetes, that is becoming this outer or a distant part of the topical map, because there's no word diabetes in that term. But if you know that it leads or it is one of the connected points, that becomes a potential topic that you can process to then, which then can be connected to your, let's say, the core part, which is related to the actual, let's say, analysis or the research studies and then the consultation about diabetes. I hope that helps. I just wanted to add this comment because the yeah, it's an important part for the accuracy.
Yeah, very nice. You covered it very precisely and nicely. Like it's where most of the folks or people, I mean, get confused and they don't know. I mean, they just what they do. I mean, I've been following and seeing a lot of guys who said, okay, we got the course and we know the semantic terminologies and we can create a topical map. What they do, they just go to a tool like SCMS, HRF, they put their seed keyword export, all the topical coverage or the behaviors or the keywords, then cluster them together through a tool. Okay, these 10 needs to be grouped together on one page. These three needs three different pages. Do you think, I mean, it's not what we have like read or studied in semantic SEO, or can say creating a topical map. It's, it's totally like traditional SEO, right?
Yeah, it is not enough, and I want to mention actually something that Koray has been mentioning recently.
Sure.
He keeps saying that SEOs will become business people, or business people will become SEOs. And I think there are many different ways how you can interpret that. But actually, one of the ways that I think is helpful in this context is that if you're doing business in a proper way, you are actually providing a solution for the people's needs. They come to your business to buy something. They have a need. Either they want food, or let's say that treatment with diabetes, or a consultation, or they want to repair their phone or something like that. So they have a problem. They need the solution. They come to the business. They're ready to buy that. It's very important to treat your website with exactly same type of mindset. When people are searching for these queries or for these questions, they have a need. And it's important that you address that with high precision, high accuracy, and something that will be actually useful, not just something that has keywords or entities or some terms. Because ultimately, all of this, it's easy to get lost in the algorithms and systems and all technical things. But the real part is that there are people in the real world that are in a situation in their life, and they have a question or they have a problem, and they need the answer or they need the solution. So they will start searching on Google. How do I do this? How do I fix that? What's the problem? How do I know if there is a problem? That's when you capture them. So you need to understand what is your potential audience, where they are in life, in which situations they are in life, and where do they start searching, from the most distant topics where they just maybe think there's a problem and they're just researching, like, is there a problem or not, down to the point where they exactly know the problem, what it is and why they have it, and they're looking for the solution or for the way to fix it. There's a very long journey from just asking questions to actually being ready to, let's say, purchase something. So this is real behavior of people in the real world. That's what's important to pay attention to, and understand that all of these users, they are potential customers. You need to serve all of them. That's how search engine can understand that you're, let's say, the expert, or let's say you know what you're talking about. You have that expertise on your topic. It's again part of the algorithm, but at the same time you can see how well it connects to the actual real world scenarios. And this is, I'll just reiterate, but this is exactly how I see it, as one of the interpretations that SEO is similar to business, or business similar to SEO, because you have people in the real world and you need to help them or provide them with answers or serve them with your service. So yeah, that's that.
I love the style how you explain. So that totally makes sense. And I've been also like advocating the same stuff. And there's also one problem associated with the first approach, which I mentioned, like exporting the data from tools and making some adjustment and publishing at scale. So one problem is in very big problem is in that everyone has access to those tools. Everyone can do the same. So it's really important to make some difference, to draw some line between, and how you make yourself, you can say, higher, rank higher. That's how. So yes, so basically it's all about studying or understanding your users, like their users, the searchers behaviors, how they search. And you basically understand the behavior from Google point of view. I mean, you basically understand the query semantics around specific outcome, all the connected behaviors. What's your approach, by the way, to understand your users' behaviors around a specific, you can say, problem or solution? And this is one part. And then first you understand all the behaviors and potential problems or behaviors of the user. Then you connect those behaviors, search behaviors, to your solution, what you're offering. So this is the second part, how you connect those behavior with your solution.
Let me give an actual quote, because I think it will be very good fit here. But I know that Bill Slavsky actually gave a quote to Koray, and unfortunately I don't remember the quote like perfectly 100%, but it was something like go to your client, go to their sales team, and ask what are the customers asking of the sales team, what kind of problems they have, what kind of concerns they have, what do they what are they worried about, what is their history, what's their situation. Again, it goes back to the real world behavior in the real scenarios. Those are the things you need to be aware of, and that's what you basically connect to the service you provide. Another thing I can mention, back to this SEO vibes, and I hope I remember correctly, but I believe at one point James Dooley, together with Carl Hudson, they were on the stage and they were asked maybe not a similar question, but I remember that they were explaining that they actually talk to the salesperson, because the salesperson is the actual like closest connection to these real world customers, and he knows their almost like emotions and the state that they're in, including the concerns, doubts, what they're really confident in, and what they're really doubting. So that's where the best type of information comes from. In some cases, unfortunately, it is not possible if, let's say, client doesn't exist in the real world, in the case that they do not face clients in a physical scenario or even like online scenario. In those cases, it's much tougher because it becomes kind of like a game of trying to read the mind of a person. And it does come, again, it starts from researching the queries. If there is an actual data in the console, that helps a lot because it can give you extra precision or extra clarity on certain things. But again, maybe that doesn't exist. So in that case, it's about trying to guess and understand, and reading online, let's say forums, discussions, things like that. You can kind of get a better understanding, but not always, because lots of things on those forums and like social media, things like that, it can be blurred, especially with marketers and other different things. So it's tricky. It's not so simple, unfortunately.
So it's all about understanding first, from the past customers or what the problem they're facing, and then from those problems you lay down or you write down, jot down the search behaviors. But when it comes to search behaviors, don't you think Google or any other tools like YouTube, uh, because Google is the ultimate place where we want to rank, right? So what about if we start from Google search? What steps you would like to take? Again, some top pages you would read to get some idea. Okay, this is what the main topic is evolving around. These are some main themes or templates revolving around a specific outcome, query templates, you can say that. Uh, Also some related, Google main page, search features, the features on the main search page, I guess that gives you answer of everything. Isn't that, or you would like to add something here?
You can't fully rely on search data or any keyword data because it's never going to be complete. Primarily because the data that we get from any kind of tool, it's third-party data. It's estimated as a first priority, let's say, is taken from the Google Ads system, and then modified or extended with lots of different additional things. So sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. It's a good estimate. It's good to try to, let's say, read it and understand it as good as possible. But you cannot just follow the statistics in like a raw format and trust it blindly, because it doesn't come from the real world scenarios. And another thing is, I just want to highlight this part because it's really important, but maybe people don't realize that, let's say, predicting or estimating keyword search volumes is a bit like a crazy concept, because there is real people in the real world, and a trend happens, so they search. Let's say a kind of yearly disease comes around or something like that, and people search. Their favorite team starts to, let's say it's announced to play a game or something, and they search. So if you look at the statistics, it will be 0, but in reality, it's already happening and people are already searching. Once that data gets refreshed, it's maybe a month or 2 months from now, you will see really high numbers, but maybe the event is over and now nobody's actually searching. So data is a very rough estimate. First of all, not all keywords are actually tracked and reported on. Second, it's just estimations. So that's why just taking an export and looking at the numbers, it's not enough. Yeah, as I said, this is a very tricky part where you really need to almost like try to read the minds of users or even entire groups to try to understand how would they act and how would they behave. And this is maybe one of the coolest parts, because this is where the real skill set comes in, or the real experience comes in. The more you try to do it, the more you test it, the more you can see whether it's working or not. So that's a special talent that good SEO people have.
So I think it's more related to consumer or business perspective rather than search, because almost 99% of the SEOs just relying on keyword volumes and tools and getting data what already being searched. And you mentioned a really good point. If a event or a specific activity, or you can say something like that, is over and you're getting the volume of from the previous month's data, I mean from the last year probably, you're not ahead of in the picture, you ahead before, you are like besides. Yeah, that's, I mean, where that could make a difference. And but I mean, it's like lot of involvement of sales or some BDs or some, you can say, or even if there's no like physically client facing activities or something like that, you're running business like that, you can maybe hire a subject matter expert to give you like a basic overview of your typical buyer persona, or not specifically, but the main problems, or how a specific knowledge domain, or you can say behavior around a specific, for example diabetes. Okay, they give you a complete picture, then you take notes, and from those you actually create new topics or maybe concepts. Then you go and then you search if there is a specific topic related to those problems which you got from the subject matter expert. Like you first draw a picture yourself, I mean from your business model, source context, then some main problems around that specific solution you're offering, and then you try to connect the search behaviors in the form of like search demand. As you mentioned, not all topics, if they are very important, and for example a subject matter expert knows only but not has very good search demand, so you said you should not cover those. So in terms of that, I think first making doing your homework, then connecting the search behaviors, this is how I think one person should proceed. Is that correct?
That's one of the ways. You can say this is this. I would say if this is executed correctly, it can work. The thing is that it always depends on the case, on the client, and their situation, and things like that. If you have a brand new client that is really starting out with their business and everything else, and they don't even understand their persona, then I would say maybe even SEO is not a good start for them in general, because they need to even realize what kind of audience they're trying to capture, how they're going to monetize, Can they even be profitable from that audience? There's so many lots of other things that go into play. Another way is, well, like you described, you can try to estimate that or build that buyer persona and then take things further from that perspective. It can be logical and can be useful as well. I believe another way, and as we said before, even though the keyword data is estimated and it's not precisely accurate, if you can try to sort of read between the lines and try to understand what's the actual behavior of people on the specific term or on the specific topic, it can still be done based on, or let's say not based on keywords, but you can build your estimations on this data of keywords, which is, of course, not accurate, but on the other side, we don't really have a more accurate perspective. So these are the options, really. Whatever helps, whatever works is a good approach.
Yeah, it depends. Nice. So I have like a couple of questions regarding topic generation, or you can say topic research. Like for a topical map, I mean, let's take that as an example this time as well. First of all, there could be like more than 5,000 topics, or even more than that topics around diabetes. Where do you draw a line that, okay, these would be, that these you should cover? And let's suppose all 5,000 are relevant. Let's suppose. I mean, obviously not 100%, but somehow you can maybe make some conversion through those, like you mentioned. So like they could come in your outer, if they're not specifically directly related with your source context or not a relevant attribute, they coming under in. But like 5,000 topics, you cannot simply cover depending on the cost factor. Where do you draw a line? Okay, these 300 or 400 topics you should cover very first in the first go or in a topical map. Number one. And how do you, by the way, research topics? Simply, as you mentioned, Reddit, some communities help as well. Getting or listening to the sales call with the client or with the customer as well helps making things down easily, writing things down and then come up with some ideas. But is there any other things you would like to add, like how, number one, how to research topics or how to generate topics around a specific entity in your central search intent? Number two, where do you draw the line? Like, okay, these topics must be covered instead of all 5,300. These are very important.
Sure. So about the topics, I would say the main things is, as we discussed before, it is about looking at the queries. You can build a buyer persona, go from that perspective, consult with the sales people, things like that. You can, I would say there's no like a strict SOP to follow, because you can really even generate them through any LLMs. The only thing is that you need to verify them against the accurate data and whether it has been researched or not. Maybe there are LLMs that are, let's say, experts in diabetes, so maybe they would actually know lots more things that could be connected in certain different ways, which can be helpful. But this is all conceptual and theoretical. The point is that we'll always have to come back to the search data and align things with it. So whatever gives the inspiration, you can go directly from the SERP. There's lots of things that you can pick directly from the SERP, whether you see different sort of annotations, knowledge panels, the questions that come up, and lots of different things, if you just pay attention to what's being presented. So in that sense, you can choose any of the starting points, whether it's, again, keywords, LLM, the consultation with the salesperson, get 5-10 initial critical topics, then you ask questions on those, Google them, analyze SERP. It will give you these additional sub-connected things. Then you can write those down, generate questions for all of those, search that, and just keep repeating. And it's not a challenge to reach those 5,000 topics, because things are all of the concepts are connected to all other concepts. So no strict SOP. Again, whatever you find more comfortable or whatever you understand better. Your second question was about drawing the line, and this, you actually mentioned this word of cost. This is a big part when it comes to clients, or let's say specific type of business. If they're not able to cover all 5,000 concepts, we cannot do that. So then where we're drawing the line would be actually a part of the calculation that estimates the costs as well. If they really cannot write even 50 articles, well, we need to choose the absolute most important ones for those first, let's say, 40 or 30 or whatever. And then it's lots of variables. This part is, in a way, like a chess game, because you have lots of different options and you need to evaluate all of them at the same time. If you have templates, that will save you money and you can produce things quicker there. So it's good to include those in. If you have multiple templates, it's better to include them in, which you can see a single template as a single article. But when they're written, it will actually turn into, let's say, 30, 40, 50 articles. So templates is a very massive shortcut there. Another part is popularity and search demand. Both of these things are important, plus the relevance that goes, or again, relevance or closeness to your source context. Your service pages or the actual part of consultation, plus the main aspects where people are searching. Another thing here is the actual competitiveness of all of these topics, plus the strength of the brand. If we're a brand new company with no brand, no prominence on the web, there's no real presence, we cannot really go and compete on like highly dense and rich topics that have been processed by like very big authorities with 30, 40 pages within a single cluster when we're just starting. So it's easier to, in that sense, it's important to get the attention and traction and then bring that closer to the actual area of expertise. So this is tricky because it requires analysis, understanding of all of these variables, and like finding a certain balance between them. And then another actually important part is the expertise of the writer or the authors, because if they're not able to provide deep enough articles, that means we're not able to go deep enough on certain specific, let's say, concepts. In that sense, it's a very big limit, and maybe it will even disconnect us from, or it will remove the chances of us to compete for certain specific aspects. So we need to go maybe again for something more templated or simpler, prove the concepts, and then basically convince the clients that we need a higher level of expertise to go for more important things that are also more monetizable. It's a balance of these different variables. So it's a bit of a tricky question to just answer. And by the way, just another, you also asked sort of where to draw the line. In my experience, this really helps once you go through, let's say, the whole process by yourself and many times. You can clearly see how concepts are being connected. Where can you easily sort of reflect on other things? So once you're actually building out the topical map, you can already visualize the vectors and the briefs, or you can just get a conceptual idea. So you can see what's close and what is distant. And if you have a limited focus of topics or pages, you already are able to estimate those more distant ones, exclude them from the initial part, so you stay focused within a single, let's say, more related, let's say, bubble of these topics. It's a tricky part, definitely something that requires practice. I hope it helps.
Helps. And I have like couple more follow-up questions. Like I suppose even though 5,000 is like very less number I quoted, even I was like created topical map in a like very big knowledge domain. I had like more than 50,000 topics literally, and I had no idea where to start. And I've like started filtering manually and based on multiple things. Obviously, relevancy first I prioritized, and I like drill down and you can say funnel down to like 6,000 topics. Like everything I've done manually. Do you think like is there any way to automate or to check at scale the semantic closeness, as you said, and distance, like two topics, or with your like relevance, with your source context, or with your like uh, something you can say like, can you check at bulk? I mean,
I understand.
which fit? Yeah. Okay.
So I would say theoretically, yes, you can do that. You can use different type of, let's say, programs or specific packages in, let's say, Python, like an LTK or Spacey or things like that. But I believe, and this is, as I said, this is theoretical. In theory, you can measure those distances. You can present your source context or different types of like root documents and try to build those connections. The point is that there will always be a number that shows you the relevance, and that number is sort of like a threshold that you set, which says, is it valid or not? Is it distant or is it not distant? And this is a very, let's say, flexible number. It always goes up and down and things change. So you cannot just set a specific number, run lots of different topics through this algorithm and filter them out. Doesn't work like that. An alternative way, again, theoretically, you can try ask LLMs to do that for you, but it's all about this next word prediction and randomization that will occur. So not a good option. I wouldn't really recommend doing that. The best way is to go manually and try to analyze the actual SERP, actual indexes, and then build the connections this way. It's way more precise because in the end, well, just to give an abstract answer here, search engine is already an algorithm, and they already have all these numbers and thresholds and all these calculations, but they still don't understand things good enough. This is why you always have these refreshments and updates and things like that. And these search engines, they try to understand and emulate the human understanding of topics. So this is where you have an edge, or this is where you have the advantage above the algorithm, because it tries to learn from you. Therefore, if you have a task to process the topics and you will use a weaker algorithm than Google to sort them out, you'll probably not be so accurate compared to when you do it actually manually. That's that part, and yeah, well, that would be the answer.
Nice, nice. Like human work or doing things manually, there's no alternative so far. But I think it's great to maybe get some help from some LLMs, maybe to save your time. And definitely, it's worth testing, I guess, because AI is like literally reshaping and everything. So I would say I'll definitely try it myself and let you know, okay, how it does goes, and maybe we can maybe try something out as well in the future. Okay,
Sorry,
so
sorry, just one thing about LLMs. I want to say it because this is important. If anyone who wants to use an LLM, just make sure you're using it as a, let's say, assistant or a suggestion, rather than the actual final output that you start to act on. Because understand that LLM, just with a chance, it predicts these next words. It doesn't always truly, fully understand what you request from it. It there's no like true understanding behind the system. So you can, let's say, try to do it in bulk, like process 20 topics at the same time or something like that, but you still need to review it and you need to adjust it, because it will, let's say, solve out of 10 questions, it will solve 7 for you, but it will create 3 additional problems. So it helps you a little bit, but it also creates you extra work. It's not really like a super perfect solution. It still requires a lot of manual revision after it gives you the output. So at least in its current state, maybe the next GPT or whatever strongest LLM that will come out, maybe it will be groundbreaking and life-changing, but in the current state, cannot fully rely on them.
Okay, name the one LLM which is so far working best, which you prefer, you use.
I really like Mistral models, basically all of them. The Mistral, yeah. The Mixtral, one of their, like, I think, flagship or really first popular ones. It's consistent, simple, very cheap, very, let's say, predictable, but it's not, let's say, very intelligent. You cannot give it too like complex tasks. They also have small, medium, and large models, which do, let's say, better for the intelligence tasks. The thing I like about them is they're much more consistent and solid. In a way, there is a lot less randomization. But that still doesn't mean that it solves everything, because if it is wrong about something, it will be consistently wrong about that. So if it's right about something, that's a good thing. It will be consistently right about that. But yeah, there's problems with those.
Great. I guess our podcast is like almost gonna end, but one last question I have very interesting in mind, and it's very, can say, relatable as well with topical authority and topical map stuff. Like when you're researching topic, you mentioned one word, you check the competitiveness of a topic, but how do you check that? Like you see the metrics like KD, something like
No,
that, or how do you know?
sure.
Okay, so
It's
what's
it's
the,
it's not
yeah.
about the keyword difficulty or any of these things. It's about it's easy to do once you process multiple topical maps and vectors and briefs, and this project has been launched, and you've seen the data, sort of the response or the feedback from the search engine. So you do these multiple times, you can understand where the actual connection happens. And basically, after that point, that's where you really can go and analyze different SERPs or competitors and see where they have really strong coverage and high levels of expertise, and when it's just a very vague and generic thing. It includes, let's say, lots of different concepts, but just to name a few, it's the precision of writing, the accuracy of facts, the density of all the statements that they provide, then the overall coverage and amount of connected topics. So I believe Koray had a research about apples and bananas or something like that in different SERPs. Or sorry, on the SERP, and he was analyzing all these competitors in terms of who ranks there and how. And he was mentioning that one site has like 5,000 articles just related to apples in terms of, like, I think it was something like the nutrition, the recipes, the types of apples, and then for every single type, there is, again, those nutritions and different like benefits and lots of different things. So the coverage there is massive compared to, let's say, another site that just focuses on a kind of single template. So how they perceive these topics or these clusters is very different. Therefore, how search engine would approach these sites will also be very different. So it's understanding those things, understanding how the indexes are being built, plus actually just manually, visually looking at the content, the words, how it's being put up, how often it is refreshed also is important. The popularity or prominence of the brand, another thing, page rank, another thing. There's lots of these factors. You almost evaluate all of these mm, ranking signals all into one to see what are the thresholds, basically. What do we need to be competing with these guys? Uh, so again, it's a bit of a more complex thing than just a single KD metric. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I also noticed. Just I just wanted to double check with you, and to everyone who's listening to this podcast will probably know that okay, it's not. It's like 2024, and I mean it's like LLMs, ChatGPT is a lot uh, big stuff coming, and this just believing on metrics like KD and volume. These all are like vanity metrics so far, but okay, so that's it, I guess. To be honest, time flies. I didn't know. I mean, it's like just we started and 1 hour crossed, and it's like 1% of stuff we just covered, and maybe in the future we can do more, like on microsemantics, semantic briefs, content creation, LLMs, some linguistics, and a lot of like magical stuff. So definitely. And by the way, which next conference you coming to? Is it in September? That one, Turkish, or is there any other before that?
I'm not sure yet because the plans are a bit too busy, but I hope to join the one in September, definitely in Turkey.
I'm also excited. Let's see how things goes. And by the way, thanks for coming and sharing your expertise, knowledge, learnings, and lot of experience. By the way, it's just like start, and it's not everything. By the way, it's just like changing, or you can say building some mindset and clearing some concepts together and helping others to learn as well from our experiences. So I guess that would be a good start. And by the way, what do you say? Like, do you want to say something about this podcast or any concluding words?
Thanks so much for having me here, Mohammed. It's a pleasurable conversation. I hope it was clear enough and useful. And yeah, I had a great time here.
Amazing, amazing. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.